Welcome, friends, to this Wednesday evening Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. So I hope you're all able to get the mailing I sent out on Monday and had a chance to read through on the attachment that I included, read through the suttas that we're going to go over this evening. And these are basically just sort of analogies that the Buddha was giving the monks. As we started last week, we talked about the tortoise and a log of wood. And so this one is about the 6 animals, which is basically related to our senses. So I'm just going to read this. Suppose, monks, a man catches 6 animals of diverse range and of diverse pasturage, and he tethers them with a stout rope to a strong post. He catches a dog and tethers it with a stout rope to the strong post. He also catches a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a jackal, and a monkey, and he tethers all of them with a stout rope to that same post. Having done so, he then ties them together with a knot in the middle and sets them going. Now, if you can visualize that, how that would look with those 6 animals and their ropes connected. And those 6 animals of diverse range and diverse pastures, they will all struggle to run off to the place where they think they might, get they're used to getting freedom and food. And so they will be kind of pulling against each other. The dog would struggle thinking, I'll enter the village. The snake thinks, I'll go to the anthill. The crocodile says, I'll go into the pond. The bird says, I'll fly into the air. The jackal would think, I'll go to the charnel ground, which is like a cemetery. And the monkey would think, I'll be off to the forest. Now, not being able to get loose when those 6 hungry animals, they grew tired and weary, and they would follow after the one of them which is the stronger. So the one that's the strongest would be able to pull the others along with it. And they would be subject to that particular animal. So he gives this as a simile. So even in this way, monks, whoever has attention in the body is not practiced. Whoever does not have a good grounding attention to the body is not made much of, if it's neglected, each of the senses struggle to pull him to the objects of their range, or delightful to experience. And repulsive to him are objects that displease. So in other words, let's say you smell walking down the street and you smell a nice smell coming from a restaurant. And then you start to get pulled toward that, but then all of a sudden some good-looking person, maybe of the opposite gender, walks by, and then the eye gets pulled toward that senses and gets pulled away from the smell temporarily. And then maybe a large sound, a fire truck or some screeching auto, 2 cars crash into each other, and then that sound gets pulled or leaves whatever it might have been looking at or smelling and gets drawn to the sound. And then maybe you get a pain, maybe a bee stings you, and the attention then goes to the body and lets go of those other objects. In the same way for tastes or thoughts. You remember something. So like that, it's a very appropriate kind of analogy, because we can see that sometimes in our experience, how our attention is changed very rapidly from one sense to another, depending on which one is the strongest, right? The one that we either have the most desire to want to get a hold of, or the aversion to want to get away from. And that's because a person is not grounded in the body, so they get easily pulled out to the external objects that are attracting the attention. And so not being able to control the senses in that way, and the mind's reaction to the senses in that way, and then maybe going to create some karma in order to satisfy our desire for an object, or maybe to do some unwholesome action to get away from something. That is called non-restraint. And then the Buddha goes on to say, and how monks is restraint. And so he says, suppose those same animals, coming back to the analogy of the animals, those same 6 animals tethered to the post, after struggling from some time, they became tired and weary. And then they would have to stand, even at the strongest one. Maybe the strongest one was even, was getting a lot of resistance from all the other 5, and he was getting tired of, or she was getting tired of that struggling against the other animals. And they would all get weary and, just kind of start standing still. Or they would then crouch down or lie down close to the post. And so then, even so, again, talking to the monks, whoever mindfulness of the body is established and made much of, the senses do not struggle to pull him with the objects that charm, and the unpleasant objects that are repulsive to him. They have been played out, grown tired, have come to a rest. And that person can then dwell at ease, untroubled, with their thoughts boundless. That person understands as it really is the emancipation or freedom of the heart by wisdom, whereby those evil, unprofitable states that have arisen immediately come to cease without remainder. And in his final answer, wherefore, monks, you must train yourselves like this. We shall practice attention to the body. It shall be made much of, built upon, striven with, accumulated, and thoroughly undertaken. So, I think, all my meditations basically for the last so many, times in all my talks, mindfulness of the body at the beginning of every meditation, we, practice with getting the mind centered and grounded in the body. And that's because of this reason. It's that being grounded and centered in the body creates a space between the senses. It creates a kind of a buffer zone. It means if your attention is always reminding yourself, yes, I'm sitting now, I'm standing, walking, moving, but basically feeling the sensations, like feeling the sensations of the clothing touching your skin, feeling the glasses on your face, feeling any other, sensations, even little itches and aches and pains. But your attention is being, at least a good chunk of it is grounded to the body, attached to the body. So if you start to hear, see, smell, touch, or even think of something, the mind starts to go off, but it like reaches the end of a short rope. You remember, yes, the body. And so it's like the mind gets split. You got 50% of the attention on your body, maybe 50% of the attention hearing or seeing a sound. But because that's even, the mind is not getting totally lost into that particular stimulus at that time, because half of the mind is still feeling some part of the body. And that way, you can easily then examine or reflect on that particular impulse, even if it's a thought, you're getting angry at somebody, but because half of your mind is feeling the body, you can say, okay, there's no big deal, angry, so what? Maybe it's not that bad. You can relax around it without, let's say, going in and flipping somebody the finger or shouting a curse word, and then you've created karma, right? That's going to instantly come back to you. So that is the marvelous thing about mindfulness of the body. And that's why the Buddha gave so many talks about the mindfulness of the body, and said that that's really the best way to control the senses. People are doing all these different things to, kind of not be attached to the senses, like, wiring their mouths shut so they won't eat so much food, or maybe putting earplugs in so they don't have to hear sounds, or, wearing other glasses not to see things. But, you can't always be doing that. And that's also not very effective. So the mindfulness of the body really, it's made a vehicle of, it's made a foundation of, it's made a continuous object. That's when it really is very powerful for then restraining the mind from getting carried away and lost in the various either the external sensory world or even within our own mind. Get carried away in your various thoughts. But if you remember, the body is sitting, you can, again, prevent the mind from getting totally lost into the things. You can kind of observe both of them at the same time. If you've got part of your attention on the body, and you can still hear sounds and understand and still think, but you will be monitoring yourself. It's like an inbuilt computer monitoring your senses. If you have part of your attention always, or at least most of the time, much of the time, maybe not all the time, 50% of the time, feeling the body, then you will always be able to let go of that attachment or release the object of that and pull back a little bit. It's like the simile that I give. I've told this story many times. Let's say you're watching television on your sofa at home. You're watching a soap opera or maybe a sporting match, or, and you're rooting, like a sporting match, you're rooting for your team and you're engrossed in, the various players, and your mind is totally lost in that. And then maybe somebody pulls up in your house in a car and pulls out on the street. You don't hear that car come up, or you don't hear the neighbor's dog barking or your own dog barking. And then the person gets out of their car and they slam the door of their car. You don't hear the person, the door's shutting. Then the person comes and starts climbing over your fence. You don't even hear that because you're totally engrossed in the whatever you're watching. And then, the thief comes into the back, opens your window, sneaks in and robs part of your house, steals your sterling silver out of the kitchen, or whatever, and then goes. And you didn't even know that because your mind was totally engrossed in that, what you're preoccupied with. But then let's say the example of you're sitting on a sofa, but you have part of your attention feeling some of the body. And you can still watch your show, but there's at least some kind of little detachment, but you can still know what's going on. And then when a car comes out in front, you might be able to hear the car. Okay, there's a car coming up, so a lot of cars come up. And then you hear the door shut. Okay, somebody come, maybe it's for the neighbors. And then you hear the dog barking. But then you might start saying, well, okay, somebody's coming. And you might start then pulling back a little bit from your getting lost in the TV program. And then you might hear the person climbing over your fence. And you'd think, well, my friend wouldn't climb over the fence, right? And so you're thinking, oh, maybe I'd go check out. So then you get up, you go into the back, and you stand by that window, and the person crawls in the window, and you put a bag over his head and call the cops, right? So that's similar to how our mindfulness does. Our mindfulness, it can detect when you're starting to get irritated from a sound, getting attracted or irritated by a visible object, or even a thought in your mind, and then you apply those antidotes for dealing with distracting thoughts that I've talked about before, or you can reflect on that object or reason about it and come to some more understanding about it, and then let go of it or take some action if you need. But anyway, it gives you that ability to at least to prevent any negative karma. So you still might get to that point of you'd like to call somebody out, right? Or you'd like to flip somebody off, but you said, no, that'll create some bad karma. They might punch me in the nose or attack me. So at least you can prevent yourself from doing, something that you would regret. Anyway, so that's how the mindfulness of the body really, it acts as an anchor, like the anchor of a ship. And that's why the Buddha, apart from the 4 foundations of mindfulness, a lot of people haven't heard that the Buddha actually gave a talk just about mindfulness of the body. And how he said at the end, if a person practices mindfulness of the body, then they're going to be able to practice mindfulness of all the other things as well, because they will follow in lockstep. If you're mindful of the body, you'll be mindful of feelings. If you're mindful of the feelings, you'll be mindful of your thoughts. And if you're mindful of the thoughts, you'll be mindful of your urges and reactions and be able to apply that restraint. So that's why the Buddha gave so much importance to developing mindfulness of the body. Because look, we have the body with us all the time, right? We're carrying it around with us 24/7. It weighs 100 or more pounds for most people. Some people 200, 250. So, it's not like something out there, right? So you should be able to develop that, maybe not a constant feeling or centeredness in it, but at least even if it's half of the time, that's going to be a lot more than the average person who's maybe feeling their body 5% of the time. Okay, so having said that much about the mindfulness of the body, let's see if anything has come up in the chat box concerning that. Okay, somebody's commenting on the last part of that sutra. He understands as it really is the emancipation of the heart by wisdom. Does the heart here means mind? What Pali word was translated to heart in this sutta? Probably the chitta. Probably I'd have to check the sutta, but probably it says chitta. Now, I know some people have translated chitta as heart, but it's really the mind, what I would call the mind or the chitta. The heart is a euphemism, or it's a nice little word, with a heart, but the heart, is represented by the qualities of, compassion and so on. And there's a lot of different, teachers and other translators have, used different ways to translate these terms. So it can be misleading. So whoever translated that particular sutra, the emancipation of the heart, then, they might be, because Westerners like to hear that, right? The heart, okay. But I always would prefer to say the mind. It's a liberation of the mind. But anyway, it's nothing to argue over as long as you understand the point of it. So, if the heart dies or stops beating, you're going to die. But if the mind gets disturbed, it's going to really mess up your mind. You still have to live a long time, and you lost your memory, or you other types of mental disorders can come, even though the body is still living and the heart is still pumping blood, but it's your brain, the brain cells. If they get damaged in one way, the mind can't function through them. But anyway, the main thing is to understand what the Buddha is talking about. But I would prefer to remove any kind of confusion. It's the purification of the mind, the Chittanupasana. That's why one of the foundations of mindfulness is not doesn't mention the heart. It talks about chitta, right? Those are the Pali words the Buddha talked about. The Chittanupasana, mindfulness of the mind. He always talked about chitta. So I think that's the word that people are translating as heart for whatever reason. Okay. In mindfulness of the body, should the meditation object be the breath? It starts with the breath. But the breath, as I said in so many talks in the past, you use the breathing to get the mind to come to the body. Because if you're feeling the expanding and contracting of the chest, of the abdomen, then, that's a feeling of the body. If you're feeling the touch of air as it's going through the nostrils, that's also the body. So normally our mind is floating out there somewhere, looking at some object or internally lost in its thoughts. And so it's not aware of the body. So first we have to feel the body. So the breath helps you to get to the body. But then once the breath gets, you get centered in the breathing in the body, then the body is all around the breathing. You can't really separate them at that point. And that's why when I teach the meditation, I always talk about breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting. You're doing both at the same time. 50% of your attention is on the breath, 50% of your attention is feeling the sensations and so on that's going on. And that's a very powerful and deep state of what I call concentrated awareness. That means it's concentrated, that means it's in the body, and the awareness is able to feel the various sensations and that are coming and going in and through and around the breathing and the body. And those sensations are what triggering off our thoughts. So when you feel those sensations, you'll naturally feel the thoughts connected with the sensations. And that's how the Vedanusati leads directly to the Chittanupassana. It's all a step-by-step progress. And that's what we have to understand about the practice. So no, once you get the awareness centered in the body, the breath is no longer that important. You want to go deep and feel how the body is just millions and billions of cells and atoms that are constantly arising and vanishing, changing, and understanding how our perception arises from just vibrations. That's really deep wisdom. That's how you develop the deeper levels of wisdom. So anyway, I've talked about this so many times in the past. The 5 aggregate process of material vibration, which is the body, but not only that, it includes sounds and smells and visible objects, and then the pleasant and painful feelings that are generated by those contacts. So the breath is always there as a stabilizing to come back to anytime the mind has gotten either falls asleep or got too many thoughts. Then always come back to the breath. You'll never lose with the breathing, but it's got to go beyond just the breathing. Because if you talk about the Anapanasati Sutta, the Anapanasati Sutta, mindfulness of breathing, those are the 3 main suttas on meditation that the Buddha taught. He taught 4 foundations of mindfulness. He taught mindfulness of the body, and he taught mindfulness of the breathing. Now, these are not separate things, really. They're just kind of different ways of looking at the same thing. And they all eventually have to come to that point of developing the clear comprehension and getting the mind in the present moment and learning how to observe the impermanence and especially the no-self. The sense of self is related to your identification with the body, with feelings, with your mind, with your thoughts. And this is what keeps the sense of self kind of solidified in our consciousness. But when you stop reacting to those things, that sense of self gradually fades away. So even in the mindfulness of the breathing sutta, Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha says, breathing in, observing impermanence, breathing out, observing impermanence. Breathing in, observing the mind, breathing out, observing the mind. Breathing in, calming the mind, breathing out, calming the mind. And so you're practicing mindfulness at the same time as you're practicing the mindfulness of breathing. People try to make them as different things. No, they're not. I mean, you can make it, but it's not the way the Buddha taught it. Not the way, from my understanding. Anyway, different teachers, professors will argue the points and so on. But, you really have to practice, and you really have to practice a lot in order to understand how these different things that the Buddha taught really all, come together. Have to be balanced and integrated. Mindfulness and concentration. If you're too much concentrated and not awake and aware, the mind can fall into indolence and just get stuck in a formless jhana or something, and then you'll have to be reborn for 500 lifetimes in the future if you get the lifespan of being born in a formless jhana is 10 million years or so. I'm just going to throw numbers out, but I hope you get the point. So therefore, that's the danger of getting stuck in just concentration, which people have done. And that's why it's got to be balanced with the mindfulness. And so they're practicing Anapanasati. That's why focusing on the breathing in the center of the body, feeling the expanding and contracting movements of the abdomen, the stomach, rib cage, chest, wherever you feel those sensations, you feel the clothing rubbing against the skin as the breathing comes in and out. That keeps your attention in the body, but it also keeps it open enough to notice when you have an itch arising on your head, or you have a pain arising in your ankle, or, but the attention to the breathing helps to keep the mind from like overreacting. It helps you, okay, yeah, there's this pain down there, okay, relax around it, it's not that bad, you can contemplate. Yeah. That's the way that those have to be balanced. Okay, so anybody have any other questions on that? Raise your hand.
Bhante, what does the word upasana mean?
The word what? What word?
Upasana.
Upasana?
Yeah.
Where do you hear that? Upasana.
Didn't you say chitta and upasana?
It's called Chittanupasana. It means mindfulness of the...
Oh, I see. Okay, so they are not two separate words.
No, not in that context. There's Anupasana, which is a kind of a reflection, when you're reflecting on something.
I asked because upasana is actually a Hindi word.
It might be, yeah.
Which means devotion.
Yeah, my Hindi's not very good.
Yeah, but I was wondering if, okay, I misunderstood. And doesn't chitta means consciousness?
Yes, it's translated by different people as consciousness, the heart. I mean, as I mentioned, that's why sometimes it's best just to use the word chitta and then try to understand what these words mean. Sometimes it's called the mind. The mind is chitta too.
Yeah.
And there's another term for consciousness called vijnana, actually. The term for consciousness in Pali is vijnana. So chitta is sort of the contents of the mind. So you have like the dosa chitta, it's called a mind with hatred. So again, it's hard for us to understand these kind of terms because in Western psychology, they don't really have equivalent terms. Okay. Now there was one other sutta I thought about going over this evening. If we have time, we might just go over it quick. I'm going to read that. It's very short, actually. And it's called The Resident Pupil. It was part of that attachment that I sent out. So without a resident pupil and without a teacher, monks, this is the way the meditative life is to be lived, or the holy life to be lived. One who dwells with a resident pupil or dwells with a teacher dwells disturbed, troubled, and not at ease. How is that? A person who experiences or contacts one of those 6 objects of the senses, there arise evil, unprofitable states. That means greed, anger, hatred, unpleasant memories that abide in that person, and he gets carried away by them. So that means these states are resident in him. He's dwelling with a resident. The resident is our states of mind, but particularly the negative states of mind that we keep on regurgitating all the time, our envy, jealousy, fear, greed and hatred, and all these types of thoughts and that keep on coming back to us over and over and over again. That means you're dwelling with a resident. Therefore, that person is called co-resident, living with a a lot of people talk about, oh, I have a what do they call that? A co-worker or somebody living in your house with you, or codependency. So in this sense, it's talking about our mental states that we have trouble shaking off, like the states that I've already mentioned. So these unprofitable states beset the person. Therefore, he's called dwelling with the teacher, because they teach him about suffering. They cause us suffering. So those things that cause us suffering, those are good because they point us out to a certain extent. So they teach you something. So even the person that's, insulting you, doing something that you don't like, they're teaching you about the anger that's coming up in you and all your accumulated thoughts and ego and so on. They're teaching us that we have to look at that. And then we have to examine ourselves. Why am I allowing this person to draw me out? So anyway, so that's just a very short little sutta. So somebody who dwells with a resident pupil or has these teachers, they don't dwell at ease. But one who dwells without the resident pupil, without the resident teacher, that means these negative states of mind that keep taking us out of ourselves, that person dwells happily and at ease. Okay, so basically those two suttas I wanted to go over this evening. And during this next week, when we talk about these things in the week, you think about them in the following week. Next time you get caught up, see how many senses are pulling you at one time. Next time you get, something like that happens, some big situation, you see how strong these senses are pulling at us, and so on. And practice the mindfulness of the body. Whenever, that's why the M&Ms are great. The M&Ms that I've taught so many times. And so whenever you have a negative thought coming into your mind and you start to get caught into it, just freeze there, stop your body with a movement, and take a deep, slow breath. And now you're drawing, when you take a deep, slow breath, take 3 or 4 seconds it takes all of your energy to do that, to take a slow, deep breath. It takes all of your energy to do that. That way it pulls that energy that would have been in a thought or would have been in something that's you're looking at, it pulls it immediately to the body. I mean, you have to practice this a bit, but once you learn how to do it, especially with M&M, whenever you catch yourself at any time getting distracted, just stop. Take a deep, slow breath. Hold your breath in your lungs for 4, 5, or 6 seconds, or as long as you comfortably can. And then breathe out and just feel that contraction of the out breath. Feel the sensations in the body. And you would have forgotten about what you were thinking or preoccupied with before. It's really, the absolute best practice. People are always wondering, how do I practice? How do I practice? That is the absolute best practice that anybody could do during the day for learning how to get their mind to immediately come to the body. So, that's why I always encourage people, to take your M&Ms, every hour during the day to do an M&M. It's going to be the best thing you ever done. If you can develop that automatic, reflexive attention to come back to the body anytime that you are getting distracted by it. Okay? So friends, I think we will take a few minutes break then and come back and do some Again, sit straight, relax your shoulders, gently close your eyes. Feel your head balanced on top of the neck, keeping the chin level with the floor. Feel your face muscles, relax the face muscles. Feel the eyes in the sockets, and the eyelid stretched over the eyeball. Feel the subtle eye movement. Relax the eye. Feel the lips touching together. You can move the awareness down to the body, the attention grounded in the body. Just feel your shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Feel clothing touching the skin of the shoulders. You feel the arms hanging at the side. Feel the clothing touching the skin of the arm. You feel the clothing touching the skin of your chest and stomach area. Deeper breath. Feel the clothing rubbing on the stomach or chest. And feel your hands and fingers. Whether they touch together or whether they touch your leg. You can feel that natural inward curve of the lower lumbar vertebrae. Natural inward curve of the lower spine supports the weight of this body. At the base of the spine, so you can imagine the spinal cord coming up to the center of your back. Now feel the buttocks pressing the seat. Feel that solid contact. The buttocks pressing the seat. So mentally remember sitting, sitting, sitting. Feel the way your knees are bent, the lower legs tucked underneath. Feel the feet where they press the floor, where the ankles are crossed, the feet pressing the floor. You feel your toes. You feel the subtle sensations in the toes of feet, blood pulsing. And just remember sitting, sitting. And let the awareness come back up, rest on the eyes, the point on the eyes, the awareness, feel the whole body, all those different places just went over. All of them make up the feeling of the sitting body. Sort of hold that vague silhouette outline, sitting body in the mind's eye. It begins in deep, slow breathing. Feel the expanding and contracting movements in the middle of that body outline. It'll take 2 or 3 seconds to expand your abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs a few seconds. Imagine you feel the oxygen going into the blood and sent out to all the cells of the body with the out breath. Feel that relaxing contraction of the out breath. The last bit of air go out of the lung. So to take several more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. We're going to count the breaths from 1 to 10. Develop a more continuous concentration in the breathing. Attention focused on the expanding and contracting movements. I'll do the counting for you. On the next in breath, mentally count to 1. Hold the air in the lungs 1 or 2 seconds. And contracting out breath, also count to 1. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lung. Next in breath 2. Out breath 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4. Out 4. In 5, out 5, in 6, out 6, in 7, out 7, in 8, out 8, in 9, out 9, in 10, out 10. And just continue the counting. Let your breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. Continue to feel it. The attention focused on the same spot. Feel the residual expanding, contracting sensation. The subtler touch of clothing rubbing on skin, belly, chest. And just know when the breath is coming in, and know when the breath is going out. And know it by feeling. And make these brief mental reminders to help remember. Just in, sitting, out, out, sitting, in, sitting, out, out, sitting. The ongoing, continuous, present moment of this body, sitting and breathing. In, sitting, out, out, sitting, can, to keep that outline, body in the mind's eye, breathing going on in the center. Try to notice how each breath is different, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes you feel it more in the abdomen, sometimes you feel it more in the chest. It's always changing. Sometimes the pauses between the breaths are longer or shorter. You feel like being a scientist sitting in the laboratory looking down through the microscope. The microscope is a concentrated awareness. Focus down there, breathing process. In sitting, out, out, sitting, breath by breath, moment by moment. Just letting go of your thoughts. Just let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Holding that outline of the breathing body, front of the awareness. Feeling more and more sensation. Other sensations can be felt coming and going around the breathing, sensations on your face, sensations in the arm, the feet. It's the body awareness. It's feeling both the breathing and other sensations on the body. Breathing in, feeling the body. Breathing out, feeling the body. Just knowing that all those different sensations you're feeling are just basically just cells interacting with each other, producing sensation. Sensations on the surface of the skin, clothing touching the skin, sensations underneath the skin. The more sensations you could notice, the less time for the mind to get lost in thought. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Balancing concentration and mindfulness. And the concentration is feeling the breathing body. Mindfulness is the alertness for thoughts or other distractions. You catch the mind totally lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost. With a deep, slow breath, bring the mind back into the body. Back to in, sitting. Out, out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. With each out breath, allowing the body and mind to relax more and more. into the here and now, present moment awareness, grounded in the body. Being alert to the flow of impermanence, thoughts, sounds, other sensations coming and going. In and through that breathing body awareness. From time to time, take a few deep, slow breaths to help stay grounded and centered in the body. Awake but deeply relaxed. Concentration and mindfulness together. Feeling of calmness or stillness is the concentration, the awareness of the things coming and going is the mindfulness. Balancing the integration of concentration and mindfulness produces insight. How quickly things just arise and vanish. Conditioned nature of our consciousness. Even perceiving how our ego or thoughts of I, me, are just created within the mind due to its identifications, attachment. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. So many different sensations come and go. Pleasure or pain come and go. Thoughts, memories, ideas come and go. Thoughts of I, me, or mine come and go. These are all just a continuous flow, the five aggregates of body and mind, and the nature of impermanence, arising, lasting, briefly vanishing. Just underneath all of that change, pain, mental chaos, it's the parallel dimension of awareness, present moment awareness, grounded deep in the body. Concentration and awareness and balance. Just try to become like an empty house with nobody home to answer the call, knocking at the doors and windows. There's a sensitive microphone in the house, which is awareness that knows but doesn't know. Perceptions or thoughts arise based on that sound vibration. Sabbi sankara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukhi esamaggo visuddhiya dukkha patta ca nidukkha Vayapatta ca nibbaya Sokapatta ca nisoka Hontu sabbe pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to briefly last, then vanish. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to freedom. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. Thus spoke. I invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. We do chanting on a long out breath. Feel those vibrations of the body and mind. Take a deep breath. Sadhu. You place your hands at the edge of your knees. Take one more deep breath. Stretch your head back. Pull the hands on the knees to arch your spine backward. Lift the head up on an in-breath. On the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch your neck vertebrae. Lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Relax on the out breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So this brings our evening Dhamma discussion and meditation to an end. As I always say, mindfulness should never end. Maybe this next week, really try to work on using mindfulness of the body, especially practicing those M&Ms. Again, those are like a miracle pill. Doing an M&M every hour. Stop what you're doing, take a deep, slow breath, bring your mind to the body. Take 2 or 3 deep, slow breaths. It's already 1 minute. You've forgotten about what you were worrying about. That mad push to the future. Just being in the present moment for 1 minute. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, everyone.
Safe.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thanks, Bhante.
Everyone have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
Bhante.
Thank
Be
you.
well. Be well, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Mindfulness keeps dukkha away. And
Yes.
Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you, Bhante.
Namam.
Have a good week, Bhante.